Hey guys, and welcome back to Yarnam. Today we're in Yahar'gul, which is a pretty weird place, even by the standards of Yarnam, which is in itself a very strange city. Yahar'gul just really takes the cake. It's a really strange place occupied by a really strange group of people, known as the Mensis crew. So what's going on in Yahar'gul today? We're gonna run through it. We're gonna collect a few bloodstone chunks and then take on the One Reborn boss. But while we do that, I'm going to talk a bit about what's actually happening here, especially regarding Mensis and their so-called ritual. So, there's only a couple of questions that I'll really answer here. First of all, what did Mensis want? What were they trying to achieve? And secondly, how do they go about it? Now, if you actually proceed beyond this area and get to the Nightmare Lecture Hall, second floor, there's a note on the ground which states, Master Willem was right. Evolution without courage will be the ruin of our race. Now, what does that really imply? Now, for me, that note was definitely left by a member of Mensis, and what it basically alludes to is the fact that Mensis, as a group, were trying to get away from the mentality of the rest of the Healing Church, which is that, they wanted to ascend via the old blood and, change their form. Mensis, I don't think, wanted to do that. They wanted to actually commune with the Great Ones themselves on a more cerebral, mental level, just like Willem was trying to do by lining his brain with eyes. And that also explains why there was a split between Mensis and the Healing Church. The Healing Church was still old-fashioned, and that's why they sent Edgar into the Nightmare to spy on the rest of the Mensis people, and that's why you find him in the Nightmare of Mensis. Now, but getting back to Mensis themselves, if you read the description for the Mensis cage, which you get after you kill Mikolash, it states that the cage is a device that restrains the will of the self, allowing one to see the profane world for what it is. It also serves as an antenna that facilitates contact with the Great Ones of the dream. And that's the most important line. That's what really Mensis wanted to do. They wanted to contact and commune with the Great Ones in order to ascend at the very least mentally, or at least learn from them what they were and how they can achieve greatness themselves. And also it's worth noting that during Mikolash's boss fight, again in Mensis, he actually talks a lot about Koz. He talks more about her, and pretty much only about her for the entire boss fight. So he knows her history, and I assume that means that he knows that she is dead and that she had left an orphan behind, and that's really important. But before we go on, let's go back to the beginning, about Bloodborne as a game. What is this really all about? Now, if you read the third chord, it states that every Great One loses its child and then yearns for a surrogate. This pretty much sums up the entire, lore of the game, in my opinion. Everything that we're doing, everything that the Yarnamites were doing is basically about this. They knew and they understood that the Great Ones lost their children and were yearning for a replacement, and in order to ascend for themselves, they were trying to find a surrogate which they could use. And if you go on to Yahar'gul itself, there's a lore note on the ground which reads, Nightmarish rituals crave a newborn, find one, and silence his harrowing cry. So clearly Mensis were looking for a newborn so they could replace, draw in the Great Ones by offering this child. But what newborn does this note refer to? Who were they actually trying to use? Now, most people will tell you that it was Murgo, and I don't think that's necessarily false, but I was also, especially after the DLC, tempted to think that it was referring to the Orphan of Koz. But really, now that I think about it, I think it refers to both. Remember, nightmarish rituals crave a newborn. It doesn't say that it craves the newborn, it craves any newborn. They were looking for something that was akin, or a baby Great One themselves, in order to draw in Odin or Koz. Koz being the mother of the Orphan of Koz, and Odin being Murgo's father, I assume. But of course, Odin was formless and exists only in voice, and Koz is dead. So how did they actually go about this? How did they go about, getting to Murgo or to the Orphan? Now, one thing that's really interesting is that the boss in this area, the Orphan of the One Reborn, is a very strange creature because it doesn't really fit in with Murgo himself. It's like, if they need to get access to Murgo, why do they need the other? Why do they need two? And I think the answer to that is that basically they were trying to hedge their bets. they actually had two rituals going. One to actually get an audience with Murgo, and the second one to actually somehow get the Orphan of Kos. Now, if you read the third core description that you get from the Murgo's wet nurse, once you kill her, it states that this cord granted Mensis audience with Murgo, but resulted in the stillbirth of their brains. Now, obviously they were successful in one regard. They created the Nightmare of Mensis, and as his cord states, were able to commune with Murgo himself, for, I assume, the reason being that they wanted to actually gain access to Odin through him. But what's interesting for me is the fact that when you actually meet Mikolash, as I stated before, he doesn't talk about Murgo or Odin, he's talking about Kos. And I think what that really implies the fact that they tried to speak to Murgo, but he wasn't really giving them what they wanted. They weren't able to actually, commune with him or with Odin, which is what they really wanted. And I think he's basically just lost at that point and loses his mind and just rambling around trying to figure out how to contact Kos. So that was the first ritual, and obviously it was kind of semi-successful because they were able to create the nightmare, but they weren't able to commune with Odin. Now the second ritual, in order to understand this, you really need to look around in Yahar'gul. What do you see everywhere when you actually get there? You see caskets, you see bones, you see towards the boss fight the petrified remains of the citizens of Yharnam, and you also see undead wolves. And you see undead, basically caskets that are filled with bones that just come alive. So what exactly was going on here? I think those two things. They were trying to collect the bones of dead Yharnamites, and actually live Yharnamites, plus a second item, which was basically the yellow backbone. When I kill the Orphan, the One Reborn, when I actually get to that boss fight, you'll see that he drops the yellow backbone. And if you read the description of that item, it states, special body parts collected by the Healing Church. What was the gruesome bait used to lure? So clearly the Healing Church was trying to collect yellow backbones from places, and you can actually get them in certain parts of the old labyrinth. I think it's the labyrinth warrior enemies that actually drop it. And so if you go down to the different dungeons and you fight them, they do have a chance of dropping the yellow backbones. And I think that the church was collecting them, and Mensis was collecting them, in order to try and put together a new version of Murgo. Sorry, not new Murgo, but the Orphan of Kos. And why would they do that? They want to attract Kos herself. Now, the One Reborn is really interesting because he's actually, if you look at him, what you realise, he looks pretty much like the Orphan. If anybody's fought the Orphan before, the One Reborn actually looks like a combination of Kos herself as a dead body and the Orphan. So that's one piece of evidence. And second of all, he actually drops the yellow backbone, the One Reborn, when he dies, which shows that he's made up of it. And so it seems to me like the School of Mensis was colluding with the bell-ringing women in order to enact this second ritual, in which Mensis would provide the dead bodies and the yellow backbones, and the bell-ringing women would bring them back to life. And obviously their intention was to bring a new version of the Orphan back to life, and that's what the One Reborn is. He's not the one undead. It's not as if it's just undead bodies. It was an attempt to rebirth the Orphan of Kos in order to attract Kos herself. But obviously, as we know, when we get there, you see the One Reborn, but you don't see Kos anywhere, so obviously that itself failed. But that's quite a speculative theory. I assume other people probably thought of it themselves, but me personally, I quite like it. And even though in my mind it fits together, so I like it, so I want to stick with that theory. The boss fight itself, a lot of people tend to start, and I used to do this as well, by taking on the bell-ringing women on the sides by climbing up the stairs, but to be honest, I don't think you really need to do that. It's not an easy boss, but it's not the most difficult either. Just make sure you equip bolt paper onto your weapon, and then also get some beast blood pellets, because you really want to attack this guy really aggressively. Keep attacking him, keep hitting him, and you will eventually take him down. Okay guys, that's pretty much it for today. Thanks again for watching. As usual, if you enjoyed it, like and subscribe. It really helps me out. And if you want to question anything or talk about anything, just leave a comment and we'll start chatting. Cheers guys, bye.